Today I want to talk about some things that I struggle with as a wheelchair user and somebody who's disabled with chronic illness. My health has improved a lot over the last few years, but at one point I was bedridden. I couldn't sit up in bed, I couldn't speak, I couldn't chew food. So I kind of want to talk about like the difference between how I'm doing now and how I was back then, and the things that I still struggle with and the things that I don't really struggle with anymore. When I was bedridden at my sickest, I used to struggle with the most simple tasks, like brushing my teeth or just grabbing a straw to drink from a water glass. I also couldn't even sign my name. And if you're wondering why, how is that even possible? Honestly, it's hard to explain, but I think the simplest way to explain it is just you're so sick, you're so weak, and you feel so much pain that you just literally can't do something. And it's really hard to wrap your head around that until you've actually experienced it. I mean, even now, my health has improved a lot. Even now, it's hard to wrap my head around wow, that's how it used to be. I used to, because now I can brush my teeth fairly easily. I mean, it's still more of a struggle than a healthy person, but I'm able to do it a lot easier than I did back then. But it's really hard to wrap my head around, wow, somebody had to brush my teeth for me. Somebody had to feed me. Somebody had to hold a water glass so that I could drink out of it. I mean, if you're an autonomous, independent person, those are things that you will really have a hard time giving up. But I just really didn't have a choice. It was like survival. If I could have done those things for myself, I would have. And my goal really was to get to the point where I could do them. And slowly over the last few years, I have been able to do that. I mean, I can't do everything. I can't walk as much as I'd like to. I can't talk as much as I want to. I mean, even just making this YouTube video is kind of a miracle. So now that my health has improved, I don't struggle as much with simple things like brushing my teeth or eating or drinking out of a water glass or writing my name. I can do those things relatively easily now, which I'm super grateful for. But there are other things that take more energy that I struggle with now, as I'm sort of in this in-between area between my sickest and the healthiest I have been. But I will say that some of these things to some people might still seem very simple. I mean, and honestly, they are still very simple things that I think a lot of people, especially healthy people, take for granted. And the first thing is one of those things. It's relatively simple. It's reaching for things. I have a hard time reaching for things. And I'm not entirely sure why, because I do things that take a lot more energy than reaching for stuff. But for whatever reason, I would guess it has something to do with my circulation, like poor circulation, like blood pumping and getting to my extremities. My poor circulation, low blood volume, and low blood pressure has always been an issue for me while I've been sick. So I think that is a big reason why I struggle with reaching for things. The farther I have to reach, the higher I have to reach, the more I struggle. Also, it depends on the object. So if it's something relatively light, it's not as big of a deal, but I still I feel the weakness, and I almost get a little dizzy just doing that, reaching for something. And if it's something heavy, then I'm really in trouble, because I'm feeling it in my muscles. I'm feeling the weakness and the pain, the inflammation in my muscles, reaching for something. And if it's really something up high, then it's almost like my arm sort of goes numb, and I just lose feeling in it, and then my head starts spinning, and it's what's going on? And all the while I'm just sitting down. I am not, I know I'm sitting up, but it's not like I'm standing. But it feels it's sort of a similar feeling, systemic and in my head, as I get when I stand up, which that's another thing, is I really struggle with standing up. I get very lightheaded and dizzy, and I feel like I'm going to pass out the longer that I stand up. I'd say generally, on a good day, I have 30 seconds of standing before I need to sit down. The next thing that I struggle with is getting dressed. Now, this is something that I've always struggled with, and I still struggle with it, when I was at my sickest, it was literally impossible for me to get dressed. So a lot of times I would just stay naked, or I would wear just a pair of like boxers, because even with someone helping me, and a lot of times someone helping me actually made me crash, made my symptoms a lot worse. So it wasn't worth it to me to have someone help me get dressed, because I would just have to like go through it again the next day. Instead of putting clothes on and taking them off like once or twice a day, I just put on a pair of underwear and I just called it a day. I also had like a sheet and blankets over me and stuff like that. So it's not like I was just like, hey, I'm naked. Now that my health is doing a bit better, I have gotten to the point where obviously I can wear clothes again. But I guess the difference is it wasn't even worth it to me to do that before. Now it's worth it to me, but it's still very much a struggle. And honestly, the more clothes that I wear, the colder it is outside, the more layers that I need, the more I struggle with just the weight of the clothing, if you can imagine that. And it especially factors in when I'm reaching for stuff. So the weight, I have 3 layers. I have 2 sweatshirts and a short sleeve shirt on. So I have 3 layers on, and the sweatshirts are sort of heavy, at least, for me. And this is coming from somebody who used to deadlift over 400 pounds. So it's really hard to imagine. I would have struggled to imagine it as a healthy person. But as I'm reaching for stuff, that extra weight on my arm really hinders what I'm able to do. I struggle to keep my arm up for any significant amount of time because of the extra weight on there. Even if I didn't have that weight on there, I would struggle to do that. It's not just getting the clothes on and taking them off, but it's also functioning, going about my daily life and my daily routine with the weight of the clothes on. That's one reason why I think I do a little bit better in summer, because I have fewer, it's hot outside and I have fewer clothing. I just have a short sleeve shirt and some shorts on. So it's a little bit easier for me to move around and do things with my arms. The thing I struggle with getting the clothes on and taking them off is it's short bursts of intense movement and energy usage in a very short amount of time. And that accelerates my heart rate, and it makes my head sort of spin and get lightheaded. It makes my breathing labored, my lungs burn. And as much and as often as I try to take it slowly and do things slow so that I don't have that response to the exertion, it's really hard for me to slow down and take things slowly and do them very gradually and incrementally. And I try to do that, but when you're just trying to get back in bed and rest, the last thing you want to do is prolong this uneventful thing that you have to do, this chore of putting your clothes on. Another thing that I struggle with, and I'll try to keep the TMI to a minimum here, is going to the bathroom. Anything that I do in the bathroom is difficult, to say the least. Whether it's using the toilet, washing my hands in the sink, or taking a shower, any of that stuff is difficult and often painful and makes my symptoms worse. Transferring on and off the toilet is difficult. Reaching up, because the sink is a little bit higher, so reaching up to wash my hands is difficult. And getting in and out of the shower, we've modified the shower so that it's a little bit easier, especially than it used to be. We used to have a tub where I'd have to get over the edge of the tub. Now it's just sort of a walk-in shower. So that makes it easy. And there's a bench, so that makes it a little bit easier. But it's still difficult because sometimes I have to stand up in the shower, and that I don't last long doing that. So then I have to sit back down on the shower bench, and it's a lot of kind of maneuvering in a small area. I also struggle with getting in and out of the car, and that's a new development for me because it hasn't been that long that I've been able to go for car rides and get in and out of the car. I would say it's just in the last couple years, maybe 2 years, that I've been able to go for rides in the car. As far as transferring in and out of my scooter or wheelchair, that is probably the most difficult thing because the car is higher than my wheelchair seat. And so I have to use upper body strength to pull myself up onto the seat. Getting out of the car is a little bit easier because you're going downhill opposed to uphill. So it's a little bit easier, but it's also still very strenuous and honestly treacherous. It's dangerous because you're on a concrete hard surface. And so there's been a couple times, especially in my scooter, which doesn't have the best balance. So it easily tips over. Luckily, I've never actually had the whole thing tip over on me, but there have been a couple times where I have lost my balance and I've had to grab onto something or pull myself back just in the nick of time before eating it on the pavement. And believe it or not, I struggle with going up and down ramps. I am super grateful for any kind of ramp that helps me get in and out of a room or in and out of the house. But there's something about the increase and decrease in elevation that really makes I sort of get like vertigo, and it just kind of makes my whole system feel like crap. And I get like queasy in my stomach, nauseated. So that's difficult. And then also just like the sort of the motion of it. So I try to go slowly, but if I'm like in a hurry or something and I go too fast, it can really make my head spin and I can feel pretty sick, especially going down the ramp. Going up is slower, but it's still like the increase in elevation. So I don't really know why these things affect me the way that they do, but I just know that they do affect me. Okay, the last thing that I struggle with. You ready? This one's going to sound really simple, but I struggle with thinking, cognitive functioning. And that's interesting because it's sort of a new development. It seems to me that I actually had better and clearer cognitive functioning when I was sicker. So it's as my health has improved, it's actually my brain fog and cognitive functioning has gotten worse. And I really don't know why, except for I'm just hypothesizing, but maybe it has something to do with I'm using more energy, physical energy to do things. And so I have less energy for brain activity. I really don't know, but that's just a theory that I have. But the physical and the cognitive functioning are very much related. So if I totally exhaust myself and start crashing physically, the cognitive functioning will sort of follow suit, even if I haven't really been like doing any sort of strenuous writing or thinking or anything like that. It'll just sort of go with it, and then I'm just sort of like a marshmallow lying in bed. But interestingly, if I haven't been doing that much physical stuff and I'm pretty well rested, I'm at my baseline physically, I can still have cognitive brain fog, cognitive issues. And I'm not really sure why that is, but sometimes it'll just be like I'm thinking too much, I'm trying to figure stuff out, I'm writing too much, or sometimes it's just sleep. I'm not getting enough sleep, and that's something that I should mention also that I struggle with is sleep. I really struggle to get enough sleep. Often I am lucky to get 6 hours sleep, and I usually don't fall asleep until at least 6 in the morning. So I'll end up sleeping from like 6 or 8 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. And I hate it, especially in the fall and the winter when there's not as much sunlight. And by the time I wake up, there's only a couple hours of sunlight left. So I'm lucky to get like 2 hours of sunlight, and then I'm just in the darkness again. I'm not entirely sure why I struggle so much with sleeping. It could be some of the medications like hydrocortisone that I'm on. It could be that I just have a lot on my mind. It could be the nature of the illness. It could also be I'm on my phone too much. I don't know what it is, but it could be a combination of all of those things. Whatever it is, I really struggle with it, and I've struggled with it for a long time. But interestingly, like some of those other things, like the brain functioning, when I was sicker, when I was at my sickest, I slept a lot better. Now, as I'm doing better, my sleep has gotten a lot worse. I hope that gives you a better glimpse of what my life is like right now, and I hope some of you can relate to it. Maybe it'll shed some light on some of the things that you struggle with. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.